North Korea's audacious provocations aim to assert its dominance in the East, while China demands a referendum on Taiwan's independence, leading to a significant embarrassment for the People's Liberation Army (PLA), with 7 defeats in 7 engagements, outmaneuvered by superior tactics. A mainland fishing vessel encountered danger near Kinmen amid numerous uncertainties. Furthermore, Chinese Coast Guard vessels have surrounded Kinmen Island, raising questions about their intentions and challenging Taiwan's sovereignty. In recent years, North Korea has been seeking recognition from the US. In return, North Korea has offered to unify Korean Peninsula and become an ally of the US. China ostensibly aids North Korea in negotiations with the United States, while covertly indicating to the US its readiness to destabilize the Kim dynasty. This double-dealing strategy was exposed by anti-government whistleblowers within China, leading to the revelation of the People's Liberation Army's (PLA's) secret projects and sensitive information, significantly undermining its credibility. Around Taiwan Strait and Basha Channel areas, instead of confronting the US head-on, China resorts to petty tactics in an attempt to nibble away at those 2 strategic locations. Meanwhile, the Korean Peninsula, which was tense in January, suddenly calmed down in February. In January 2024, North Korea orchestrated a series of tense incidents on the Korean Peninsula in an attempt to gain recognition from the United States, threatening both the US and South Korea with military force. Ultimately, the United States and Japan joined forces to intervene decisively, compelling Kim Jong-un to back down. On January 1st, after the earthquake in Ishikawa Prefecture, Kim Jong-un issued a condolence message to Fumio Kishida. This was the first time since 1995, and it was seen as an attempt to bypass South Korea and establish ties with the US via Japan. However, Japan, besides expressing gratitude, did not make any further moves towards this sudden hand of friendship. Unwilling to give up, Kim Jong-un decided to step up his efforts. On January 5th, the situation on Peninsula suddenly escalated. North Korea fired more than 200 artillery shells towards the coastline. The entire peninsula was shrouded in the shadow of war. On January 15th, the Supreme People's Assembly of the North Korea abolished a series of organizations responsible for North-South affairs, and Foreign Minister Tsui Shanji went to Russia to seek military support. It is clear to anyone with a discerning eye that North Korea is trying to attack South Korea. On January 25th, North Korea announced plans to dismantle the Free Charters for National Reunification Monument, a symbol of the unified dream cherished by 3 generations of North Korean leaders. However, amidst North Korea's flurry of activities, the White House issued a directive on January 26th, stating that Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and his spouse are scheduled to visit the United States on April 10th. This announcement seemed to send a message to North Korea. Any issues can wait until the Japanese leader's visit. 5 days later, the Japanese leader casually stated, "I would like to talk with North Korea." The implication was clear. North Korea should keep things in order until April 10th. Putin was also not to be outdone and also wanted to join in the fun on the peninsula. Kim Jong-un thought that Putin's support could be used to bargain with Biden. Putin had long seen through Kim's wishful thinking, so he kept it on hold, and the time of the visit was never finalized. This time, Kim went directly to Kishida to send a message to the US. Quote, "I am the future boss of the East." Kim implied that it has a superior geographical location close to both Russia and China and can help the US contain both. If Biden supports the reunification of the peninsula by Kim, then US and North Korea can become allies. North Korea can also learn from Vietnam, develop its economy, and open its doors to make money together with the US. However, if the US insists on intervening the peninsula, North Korea will defend its interests at all costs. What do you think, Big Brother Biden? Are you tempted? Come on, let's join hands and forge a new Eastern order. Therefore, it is not a whim for North Korea to negotiate with Japan this time. It is a well-thought-out plan. Kim wants to take this opportunity to turn the peninsula into the center stage of gaming between China and Russia. China wanted to control North Korea and use it as a pawn to contain the US. To achieve this, they devised a 2-phased, quote, Korea Ginseng plan, which was ultimately exposed by China's anti-government whistleblowers. Kim's goal was to have the US recognize the hereditary rule of his family and lift the sanctions and blockade. This was the topic of discussion between him and the former President Donald Trump. However, China is not such a good actor. They told Kim Jong-un to frequently test missiles, claiming it would enable China to assist North Korea in negotiations with the United States. Yet, they said to the US, quote, "The missile launches are entirely North Korea's doing and have nothing to do with us. Just replace North Korea's leader and we guarantee there will be no more missile launches." China's plan is to have North Korea continuously launch various missiles, even conducting a nuclear test before November to pressure the United States. Meanwhile, starting from July, they will instigate trouble globally behind the scenes. Russia to cause disturbances in Eastern Europe, Iran to create problems in the Middle East, Venezuela stirs up trouble in the Southern Hemisphere. In short, the goal is to overwhelm the US with crises before the election, leaving it exhausted and scrambling. By October, if the US is too preoccupied, China will step forward, claiming it can resolve the issue of North Korea's missile launches and take down Kim Jong-un in minutes. Upon learning this news, Kim was terrified. He started taking his daughter everywhere with him, hoping that his subordinates would only recognize his family members. This is also why North Korea sought to negotiate with the US through Japan. Before November, China will make a huge request to the US, demanding that the US must not interfere with Taiwan's independence referendum. Because Xi Jinping believes that currently the number of people in Taiwan supporting independence is less than those supporting unification, he is full of confidence. China's calculations were indeed ambitious, believing they could easily manipulate the United States, North Korea, and Taiwan. Little did they know they themselves would become the biggest joke of all. Recently, the PLA has experienced a huge public humiliation. First, it was revealed by a whistleblower within China that the country had been secretly producing tanks in Iran, an enemy of the US, for the past 6 years. The whistleblower not only exposed the fact that China was producing tanks overseas, but also had precise information about the satellite layout and communication frequencies of the PLA. A 6-year project costing a huge amount of money was easily cracked by a hacker. Photos of tanks, parameters of the satellite system, and ERP software codes were all exposed online. This scared the high-level officials of the PLA. They quickly took the EPR system offline, but it was too late. All the data had been downloaded by the hacker. Now the whole world knows what the PLA is up to, causing huge embarrassment. China spent 6 years exporting its most advanced VT-4 tanks to Iran, a project codenamed 1016 and internally codenamed SAT-2. The project began in 2017 and finally completed checks on December 19, 2023. Information exposed by the whistleblower shows that even China itself has trouble with the VT-4 tank, with countless testing restrictions and the project team overwhelmed. In addition, Iran is under severe sanctions, so this 1016 project is actually losing money. However, China is determined to carry on regardless of the cost in order to seize the great changes unseen in a century and challenge the US's dominance. It has been revealed that China has established numerous munitions factories across Central Asian nations, producing military equipment for allies united in opposition to the United States, thereby circumventing US sanctions. This activity, exposed by Chinese whistleblowers, has not gone unnoticed by the United States, which is unlikely to let China off easily. The whistleblowers have not only exposed China's overseas tank production, but also have precise information on the satellite layout and communication frequencies of the PLA. Who are these whistleblowers? How did they get their hands on such top-secret information from the PLA? It turns out that the whistleblowers were once specifically engaged in designing military command centers in China, giving them deep insights into China's information systems. Additionally, the senior officials of the PLA lack understanding of technology, focusing instead on accepting kickbacks. The ERP system at the PLA's highest level was even developed by associates of the whistleblowers. Consequently, China's intelligence is readily accessible to them. This time, the detailed information of China's second-generation military satellites was exposed, including the characteristics and uses of Shentong-2 and Fenghuo-2 networks, Technical details such as ST2 ATM onboard switching, Ka broadcasting, and Q transparent transponder. Different types of satellite networks such as UHF Tactical Satellite Communication Network, FDMA Integrated Business, and Wideband Frequency Hopping Anti-Jamming Network. Specific parameters of the most critical information transmission channels during wartime. Following the exposure of the satellite information, the whistleblower hackers also released the code of the ERP software used by the PLA top-level officials. Everyone was shocked. If this software was really used, wouldn't all the data of the PLA be leaked? Looking at this interface, it's so crudely designed that it's falling apart. It includes the highest military institutions, followed by the General Staff Department, Logistics Department, and Equipment Department. Under the Equipment Department, there are the Chief Equipment Department Command and the Comprehensive Planning Bureau. The data of Chinese military's highest echelons are all here. Leaders here can give approval by simply creating a form, and once it's completed, they just click OK to approve it. The scientific research projects and military operation plans of the PLA are all managed within this ERP system. The production of tanks in Iran, as mentioned earlier, falls under the jurisdiction of the Equipment Department. Specific operational actions such as the Taiwan Dangui operation this year and the Ghost Month operation in 2022 are both projects of the General Staff Department. Inside the August 1st building of the Central Military Commission, everyone uses this ERP system daily. Now, with whistleblowers able to browse the PLA's reports in real time, doesn't this mean the PLA will have to revert to the primitive state of transmitting information via carrier pigeons? By selecting the Association button in the ERP, you can also see the documents of the Civil Aviation Corporation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Navy, the Air Force, the Ministry of Commerce, and the Ministry of Security. These documents can be distributed at any time, which means that the whistleblowers have captured all the daily work and future plans of the PLA. After the whistleblower hackers exposed the ERP code, the PLA was in an uproar. They quickly took the system offline, but it was too late. All the data had been downloaded by the hackers. China has always claimed to be the world's second largest military power, but it never expected to be so vulnerable in front of the US. In multiple war games conducted in the vicinity of the Taiwan Strait and the Basha Channel, China was utterly defeated by the US all 7 times in a row, with 14 destroyers wiped out immediately. It was even worse than its defeat to Japan 160 years ago, only to underhanded and sneaky strategies. It can only be said that the US truly is China's nemesis. In developments concerning the Basha Channel, attention has been drawn to the Philippines, which holds a strategic position nearby. On February 17th, the Philippine Congress passed the Territorial Baselines Bill, designating several islands and reefs in the South China Sea claimed by China as Philippine territory. China has expressed its protest. The Philippines responded by stating it was acting in accordance with the United States stance, referencing the 2016 United Nations arbitration ruling, which unambiguously declared the contested maritime areas as part of Philippine territorial waters. Although China was seething with rage, it ultimately backed down, resorting to verbal protests online to express its dissatisfaction. On this day, China's dignity was compromised. At the Munich Security Conference, China attempted to whitewash its behavior in the South China Sea. Its representatives in a closed-door meeting argued that the disputes over islands and reefs in the South China Sea between China, the Philippines, and Vietnam should be resolved through negotiations between the disputing countries themselves, without US interference. China has transformed reefs into islands and stationed weapons on them, but they claim this does not affect the freedom of navigation advocated by the United States. This implies that the US has no right to intervene in the territorial disputes between China and the Philippines. Despite its protestations, China has not abandoned its efforts at internal subversion in the Philippines. On January 31st, an independence movement was formally initiated in Mindanao, southern Philippines, by a former president with China's influence allegedly behind the scenes. Furthermore, there are reports of a campaign within the Philippines to stir up scandals involving the current president, subtly influencing the populace for various artificial intelligence-powered social media platforms. Chinese agents, along with pervasive Chinese corporations, are reportedly intensifying their efforts to infiltrate and subvert the country. A Fujian fishing boat encountered an accident near Kinmen, resulting in 2 deaths and 2 injuries, with numerous unresolved points surrounding the incident. Subsequently, Chinese Coast Guard vessels entered the waters of Kinmen, conducting forceful boardings and inspections. A week later, China announced that it would carry out fishery law enforcement in the Kinmen area. What is the intention behind this move? Is it an attempt to erode Taiwan's sovereignty under the guise of fishery law enforcement? The public has expressed that this incident is quite significant, pointing out numerous suspicions and concerns. Firstly, the question arises, why would a fishing vessel use a speedboat? Given that speedboats are costly to operate and suitable for prolonged work and equipped with lodging and fishing facilities, only the wealthiest fishermen could afford such an extravagance. Secondly, it is not yet the fishing season in Kinmen. What then could these fishing boats be doing here? Are they perhaps here for tourism or sightseeing? Adding to the mystery, the accents of the 2 survivors are peculiar, not resembling those of the locals.
过12点多我们就开车出去，到10:50就看到。
Facing these suspicions, the Taiwan side and the Kinmen Maritime Patrol have chosen to turn a blind eye. Could this be because they are guilty? Is this a case of internal collusion and external cooperation? On the 18th, China announced that the Fujian Coast Guard would begin maritime patrols and law enforcement operations. The next afternoon, China's Coast Guard vessels approached Kinmen, forcibly boarding a sightseeing cruise ship to inspect the passengers. The tourists on board were terrified, fearing they would be taken away. Upon observing this situation, the Taiwan Coast Guard quickly dispatched a speedboat for rescue, followed by a larger patrol vessel to manage the situation. Currently, China's 4 Coast Guard ships have entirely surrounded Kinmen Island. Originally, the exchange between Kinmen and the main island of Taiwan was facilitated by sightseeing boats and various ferries. Now, these ships are ready to conduct inspections by China at any time. It is conceivable that the hundreds of thousands of residents on Kinmen Island now feel as though they are trapped on the island. On February 25th, China announced that the Fujian Marine and Fisheries Law Enforcement General Team has dispatched 2 fishery law enforcement vessels to commence operations in the waters around Kinmen. This move indicates that Kinmen fishermen operating in these waters will be subject to inspections by the Chinese fishery authorities to verify the legality of their catch, facing fines for any violations. Should China proceed to detain fishing vessels from Kinmen, the situation could escalate unfavorably. If the development leads to fishermen being taken away, with some even being sent directly to Chinese prisons, the Taiwanese public's dissatisfaction with the ruling party is likely to grow. Subsequently, opposition parties in Taiwan, supported by China, would seize the opportunity to criticize the ruling party in the legislative yuan, demanding their resignation over the incident. This shameless and rogue strategy is a consistent approach by China to achieve its political objectives. If the residents of Kinmen, in pursuit of their livelihood, are forced to apply for fishing permits from China, Taiwan's acquiescence could be interpreted as a recognition of China's sovereignty over Kinmen. However, if Taiwan firmly denies such a stance, what would become of the livelihood of Kinmen's fishermen? A fishing license, a small piece of paper, is seemingly insignificant. However, it can be connected to sovereignty, law, domestic affairs, diplomacy, and other important matters. Under the pretext of fishery administration, China has been gradually encroaching on Taiwan's sovereignty. In the future, China may use the same method to erode the sovereignty of the Senkaku Islands of Japan. This is just the first step of China's attempt to annex Taiwan. We will closely monitor the situation and see what tricks the CCP will play next.